You need to feed that and keep it alive for as long as the metabolic functions will carry on.
Well, why can't I just say hospitals are required to give a woman progesterone to help her child? We don't have the technology yet to extract an embryo.
You were asking me to give you the potential harms in your world. Now you want to reframe it in the best possible light, but I'm just saying in your world, there's hospitals and hospitals and hospitals dedicated to keeping alive potentially these 64 128 cell organisms that may never even develop into people.
So you're saying that the weirdest thing about my view is that we might care about human beings too much.
The weirdest thing well, that's one way to phrase it, but I would argue that you're not caring about the women human beings. You're caring about the 12 cell organisms that now need to be indefinitely cared for in hospitals in petri dishes.
Well, under my view, what about those women who want those children to live? Shouldn't they be able to go to the hospital and get help?
In my view, they can go to the hospital and get help.
And I agree. That's what makes it really
so
weird.
So nothing about what you just said is exclusionary
in
my view,
because
right?
because your view isn't actually applied. Most people in the world outside there don't hold your view. They have a schizophrenic view. They give respect and care and legal protection to unborn humans that are wanted, and then create justification to kill the unwanted ones.
That's great. Whereas you can ask them about their schizophrenic views, but I think I'm pretty consistent through and through for all.
Right, and I agree. That's why both of our views, I think people should abandon their schizophrenic view and pick one of our consistent views. And I think mine is more humane.
Sure. And I don't like the one where a woman that has an abortion of a whatever that was or takes Plan B might be charged with first-degree murder.
Fine, charge her with something else.
But it would be first-degrry murder.
Why not? We live in
because I think that if a woman if she determines that she wants to go and murder her 1-year-old, I think she should be charged with first-degree murder. I don't think that should be the same penalty.
Sure. After the Civil War, all of the Confederate soldiers could have been thrown in prison for treason or hung.
We're not talking about after the Civil War. No, very easy. We don't even need analogies. It's very basic. Lots of people taking Plan B. We don't. It's a simple. It's thing.
It's not simple because
it's so simple. It's simple in your view. If a person has an abortion, they're murdering. That's a really simple thing.
But we live in a society that has a widespread disagreement about that. And so to come to a national consensus about how we treat the unborn, we're going to have to do that in compromised legal ways, just like America had to do in Reconstruction after the Civil War when there were massive disagreements in our country. I think we're at a similar crossroad.
That's fine. We can argue that, but that's like a sophisticated political legal argument.
I agree.
And your moral argument, your ideal political legal world is one in which a woman who has an abortion, twins at 14 weeks, is charged with double homicide, double first-degree murder.
We can both do the intuition pumping thing because here's the problem. You could say oh yeah, there's the 2-cell embryo. That's crazy to charge that with murder. Well, under your view, killing this thing is not murder. Whereas that's going to really mess with a lot of people's intuitions when they see that. So
I think less people's intuitions than those that would say that having a miscarriage. So, for instance, here's another thing. You would agree that every single miscarriage should probably demand an investigation for a potential homicide, correct?
No, we don't do that even for born children.
You absolutely do. If a born child dies, you don't think CPS or investigators are automatically involved in that?
Not necessarily.
Almost a 1-year-old child dies in a house?
Right.
Of course.
You're going to here's the problem here. We have when a child dies, we have the technology to take a newborn and do an autopsy to determine what happened to that human being. Okay, when it comes to a first trimester miscarriage, we don't do those investigations because we don't have the technology for that.
You absolutely can do those investigations.
How?
A woman comes into the hospital and she miscarries, right?
You mean she is miscarrying, or
she's miscarrying, in the process of miscarrying, right? She has intense stomach pain. She goes to the hospital.
Sure, she goes there, wants progesterone, wants to save the baby.
First thing we should do is we should pull some tubes of blood. We need to check for blood alcohol content, right? Make sure she's not drinking at all. Could probably send somebody to the house to check for, I don't know, any type of thing she might have there, any sort of evidence of foul play. It could be hangers. It could be, whatever else she might be using. But this is an investigation that needs to be done every single time somebody is miscarrying. So you would subject every single woman that's having a miscarriage to a full-on police investigation the same way we would for you mentioned that, for a 1-year-old child, we get an autopsy. An autopsy is an investigation. Right. We're having an investigation to figure out cause of death. But I think that would be a harm that would exist in your world that I think you should fully acknowledge.
It would be a harm but here's the thing. When abortion was illegal, and even now in cases where it is illegal, we don't do those things. It's most people don't share that intuition that we need to do that in order to protect unborn human beings.
But you should want that though, shouldn't you?
Yeah, I think that's fine, but you can't determine.
No, not fine. You're weaseling out of that. It's not that it would be fine. If somebody said, do you think we should investigate when 2-year-old children are killed or when 2-year-old children are dead? My answer, and I don't think your answer would be, yeah, that'd be fine. You would say, absolutely. Okay. I would want that to happen, right?
Yeah.
But your moral standard needs to be the exact same for the 6-week fetus.
But here's the other problem. We would have to make sure that in our zeal to look for crime, we don't prosecute parents. So, for example, when prosecutors will investigate SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome, or shaken baby syndrome, a lot of times they'll get those things wrong, for example. So we would have to put the burden very high so as to not falsely accuse people of manslaughter. Because you're familiar with people.
But nothing you just said preclude. You should still investigate shaken baby syndrome.
I agree,
right?
but we don't have the. We do not have the. Maybe as a future hypothetical, sure, fine. But we don't have that now. We have the body of
everything I just said. You can totally do right now. If
How?
if a woman is miscarrying, goes to the hospital, you pull a tube of blood to see, check her blood alcohol content. If she's intoxicated,
that doesn't prove that caused the miscarriage. Though many people are intoxicated and they give birth to babies, and many people miscarry who are not intoxicated. So that doesn't prove anything.
Sure, but you could look at it as
that wouldn't pass in a court of law where you need beyond a reasonable doubt.
If you have a child at home and you're neglecting the child, it might be hard to say for one way or another what caused the death of the child, but at the very least, you can start getting up to like manslaughter charges if you've neglected a child. But how do you tell what part of neglect actually killed them? Was it the lack of water, the lack of medical care?
Well, you could just say you have a 7-year-old that weighs 28 pounds, and you then get testimony. Why do they weigh 28 pounds? Well, because we feed them once every 4 days. There you have your evidence. You don't have anything similar for the wanton destruction of human embryos or things like that. But once again, I'm going to go back to the main. We have to get back to the basement here. Whose view of personhood makes more sense or not? Like, there's nothing improbable about my view. Like, I would say my view makes the most sense, even if you do talk about the future like ours or the person view. And once again, I don't think you can answer this question really.
Which one? I feel like I answered all your. You didn't answer any of mine, but I answered all of yours.
I answered your questions. You didn't like my answers.
Well, because you didn't really answer them. But go ahead. But I'll answer any hard question. Give me,
yeah.
A baby born missing. Which part now?
No, it's going back to you're grounding it in consciousness, but only for humans who are conscious. Because it seems
the human conscious experience. Yes, I think a human conscious experience.
What is a human? Can you describe what a human conscious experience is like?
Probably not. I don't think anybody can. But there seems to be a conscious experience that we have that all humans share.
Why do human conscious experiences matter than other conscious experiences?
Because we have a more sophisticated form of sapience that is different than the kind of experience that every other animal on the planet has.
How do you know that? Well, how can you describe what they're like how do you know that?
How do I know that? Because I have because we can do cognitive testing. We can test for types of socialization. We utilize language in ways that animals don't. We utilize tools. We have abstract concepts that we can acknowledge. We can acknowledge things. Yeah, there's like a million different ways to test.
Your consciousness matters more than the consciousness of a pig because you can do things pigs can't do.
Well, I'm a kind of thing, a human.
Yeah.
That is different. That my conscious experience, that kind of conscious experience, is a lot different in kind to a pig or a horse or a dog or even a seal or a dolphin or an ape. Yeah.
So yours rises to the level of deserving legal protection. Theirs don't.
Yes, the human experience does over the pig or the horse or the dog.
Right.
Yes.
But I mean, I just think it would be obvious to anyone who's around animals or infants that this 26-week-old fetus does not have a level of conscious experience that rises anywhere to the level of a pig or a seal or a dog.
But it is a human conscious experience, is it not?
It is a human who is having a conscious experience.
Do you think that is a lizard experience?
Is a lizard an experience?
Do you think that's having a lizard's experience? Or what would you describe their conscious experience?
It's having it's probably
diminished?
It's aware of heat, light, cold, familiar sound, unfamiliar sound, pressure.
I think a lot of those come from like the brainstem. Like you can get a lot of awareness of like heat and cold and even basic sensory movements from the brainstem. But this is prefrontal cortex development.
What do you think that 26-week-old fetus's conscious experience is then?
Closer to that of a human than a dog or a lizard.
In what way?
In that You're asking me to define like the subjective human consciousness is difficult. I don't think anybody can. It's the hard problem of consciousness. I don't think I can fully encapsulate what it means to be a human, but it seems to be the case that the conscious experience that we have is markedly different from every other animal on the planet. You seem to be claiming that a baby's conscious experience is so diminished that it resembles that of a reptile or maybe like a baby dog. I don't think that we go from lizard to dog to ape to human. I think we might have a diminished human conscious experience, but it's like growing the neurons and the synapses you said are developing, and as we grow and develop that, it becomes more apparent, but it's there just in diminished capacity.
Would you agree we have primitive conscious experiences and they become more advanced over time?
Sure, but it's all all under the umbrella of the human conscious experience. None of it is the experience of a dog.
But I feel like you're using the word human there. Here's my problem with your argument. You use human in order to get rid of the animals. Here's the thing. Here's what I think you're doing. When you use human conscious experience as a criteria, you use the word human to get rid of animals that are very conscious and aware, can do tricks, have memories.
But they don't have a sapient conscious experience like a human does. None of them do, not even remotely close. If you, to shortcut all this, if you came with this argument, you wanted to fight really hard and you actually just dominated and thrashed this part of the argument, the only thing you would do is you would get me to move the abortion age later and later and later. It would become a Daniel Dennett abort at 2 years position.
Or Peter Singer
I'm sorry,
infanticide.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm doing.
Sure. And if you want to push it further out, I'm not compelled by any of the arguments you're giving. You can, but it's not getting me to a point to where the 12 cell thing needs to be kept alive in a petri dish, or women need to be charged with double homicide if they have an abortion at 12 weeks and it's twins.
Because I think most people will find it arbitrary that you. So let me finish what I was saying, and then I'll go back to you. You use human conscious experience. You use conscious experience to disqualify fetuses, and you use human to disqualify the animals, even though the human, I think most people listening would say, the time in our development when we have conscious experiences that are richer and more complex than a chimp or a dog is long after birth. That's why I believe Peter Singer is consistent when he would say what matters is that you have rationality. You have abilities non-human animals don't have. So he says infanticide is fine. However, most people have an unbreakable intuition that infanticide is wrong. And so in order to keep that intuition, if you're going to protect human infants because they will have rational abilities in the future, even though they don't have them now, you'd have to apply that to fetuses and embryos as well.
Okay. I completely disagree, but we can loop back on this if you want.
No, why? What's wrong with this argument? What we value are rational abilities beyond what non-human animals can do. That does not develop in humans till sometime after birth. Therefore, infanticide is permissible. What's wrong with that argument?
Because what I've said before is there is a kind of human conscious experience. That kind of experience starts about 20 weeks. It might be in some diminished capacity, as you said, but that experience has begun. That at some point, you as a person were that experience at 20 weeks. That same conscious experience that starts there, that's the thing that we protect up until the point where you can no longer deploy it.
And you think that, let's say a newborn who's stuck at the newborn level forever.
When you say newborn,
newly born human being.
Yes, it would